Hi, my name is Kale, and I am a marine biology student at Unity College in the distance learning program. In the last few weeks, residents have noticed an increasingly large number of dead fish washing up onto the shore of the beach in our area. This area is routinely used for recreational activities such as boating, fishing, surfing, things like that. The local community is actually very concerned about potential toxins in the water, especially since this could affect their health and obviously the local tourism industry. I have here for you to follow along and just kind of have some information for yourself, some fact sheets. So the very first thing that I will be talking about is the chemical that I have identified in the water, and that would be chlorine. So chlorine has a structure of Cl2, so Cl and Cl. This contains two atoms that are covalently bonded, which means they share electrons. It is gaseous, water-soluble, highly reactive, with long-lasting byproducts. As far as the toxin sources, during routine boat maintenance and cleaning, chlorine can be found. It's in oils, paints, cleaners, solvents, and it can be found, from water runoff seeping into the ground and then also being rinsed off onto the water's surface. Boat cleaners contain this chemical, and that's because it enhances its effectiveness, essentially. And a single boat truly really only releases a small proportion of chlorine. However, when you think about a big area such as a beach or a lake, you think about when the boats are multiplied, they produce significant amounts, which do tend to cause water quality concern. We can discuss cell entry. Fish gills contain chloride cells that transport ions that maintain osmotic pressure in fish. Increased chlorine concentration in water causes fish to take in chlorine ions. This damages hemoglobin in the blood. As the pH level of the water decreases, it becomes more toxic. Chlorine also damages the slime coating on the fish, causing discomfort and discomfort-linked infections. So if they don't have that protective coating on their skin, they're more prone to infection. This metabolic process affected by chlorine in fish is catabolism. Chlorine as a toxicant in fish works primarily through oxidation. Once the chlorine ions enter the bloodstream, they oxidize and reduce the hemoglobin into methemoglobin. This jeopardizes the ability of the fish to carry oxygen, thereby essentially causing the fish to die of suffocation. As a secondary effect, the chlorine also causes cell damage to the gill surface. Consequently, this impedes the catabolism process, producing vibrant energy in fish using metabolites. Chlorine burns the gills of fish with chemical burns and can actually get into their bloodstream. Once it's absorbed, it can cause burns throughout the fish. And this obviously leads to pain and stress for the animal. Catabolism principally depends on excretion, respiration, and osmoregulation. At the optimum level, these processes create a controlled working environment for metabolism. Catabolism can occur at different rates depending on the environmental factors and hormones in the body. Some other factors that can influence the rate of catabolism is age, size, and activity level. But it is largely related to hormones in fish. Under ordinary circumstances, fish produce energy by oxidation, which requires a constant supply of oxygen. Chlorine contamination limits this oxygen collection in fish, thereby causing the fish to have energy using glycolysis, which is the breakdown of glucose by enzymes releasing energy. The adrenaline produced during this process stimulates tissues, converting glucose into glycogen and then to energy without using oxygen. This produces toxic lactate, hence glycolysis is only sustainable for short durations. Oxygen is also required to break down this lactate. So with its absence, it creates an oxygen debt or deficit and creates a crisis. Chlorine inhibits the function of the enzyme methemoglobin reductase that prevents red blood cells from destruction by oxidants. The CYB5R3 gene codes this enzyme. Once catabolism is inhibited, the fish continues producing energy via glycolysis, generating more toxic lactate. Oxygen is required to break down this lactate. However, chlorine creates that oxygen debt or deficit in the fish, and if this is unresolved, the fish eventually dies of suffocation. This could potentially affect tourism and human health. Visitors will not likely want to visit, a beach or polluted destination washed up with deceased fish, and may be concerned about their own health if marine animals are washing up dead. Physical health can also be affected by chlorine. Skin infections from decaying washed up marine life is always a concern. And then just to chlorine itself, toxicity can lead to ear, nose, throat, eye irritation, and if breathed in, can cause breathing patterns to change and even damage to the lungs. It is my opinion that the fish that we have found washed up on the beach were in fact exposed to chlorine toxicity. Thank you very much for your time.